the brand new Mahindra Alturas G4. We have the details and the full review. And the other big anticipated review, the Maruti Suzuki Ertiga. Hello and welcome to a brand new episode of CNB here on the NDTV network. I am Siddharth Vinayak Partnkar and we launch ourselves straight into a special episode of sorts because we're focusing on the utilities. As you saw, we've got the new Alturas G4, we've also got the Ertiga. Let's start with the new Mahindra.
Mahindra is back at doing what it does best, which is making big, burly SUVs. And the new model that we drove is a bit special because it is going to be the new flagship from the company. This is the all-new Mahindra Alturas G4. It is basically the 4th generation model of the SsangYong Rexton, and we did happen to drive it in Korea last year. The last time the Rexton was launched in India, it got a SsangYong badge, but this time around, it will be just a Mahindra SUV. This bodes well as it also signifies the coming of state-of-the-art SsangYong range in India. Compared to the previous generation model that was sold in India, this one is an all-new model ground up and holds a lot of promise. The word Alturas means pinnacle or the zenith. Relax, this is not a vocabulary class. Instead, what we have with us today is Mahindra's flagship SUV, the new Alturas G4. First showcased at the 2018 Auto Expo, this one is finally ready for sale in India. In typical Mahindra fashion, the Alturas G4 looks quite butch. The front end is pretty muscular and there's this nice sense of premiumness that oozes in when you set your eyes on the Mahindra Alturas G4. The front of the SUV is characterized by a bold grille with a chrome surround and the stylish looking headlamps. It is topped off by the sculpted hood. The silhouette is slightly boxy, but it only adds to the more SUV-ish design rather than a crossover. The design at the rear is much simpler with a regular boot and wraparound tail lamps. Rather than having a small name badge on either side, the Alturas G4 has its name lettered just above the loading lip, which in our opinion doesn't quite gel well with the overall design. Looks out of place. We were impressed with the way interiors are designed. The cabin has a dual tone theme of black and brown, where the brown is quilted Napa leather. It does look and feel premium, and the fit and finish inside is perhaps the best on any Mahindra vehicle. The dashboard uses soft touch plastics and good quality materials for a nice tactile feel. There is an 8-inch touchscreen infotainment system which has smartphone integration along with other connectivity options. You also get a dual zone fully automatic climate control along with 8-way adjustable power driver seat with memory function. In terms of safety, the Alturas offers 9 airbags on the top spec trim, which is the 4-wheel drive variant and is also best in class. You get ABS with EBD and Hill Assist as standard as well. The Alturas gets a 2.2-litre diesel engine which makes 178 brake horsepower at 4000 RPM and 420 Newton meters of peak torque between 1600 to 2600 RPM. The engine is paired to a 7-speed automatic transmission And of course, you get 4x4 as an option. The engine is Euro 6 ready and there will be neither a petrol engine nor a manual transmission even as an option for now. We spent some time with the Alturas and what's immediately noticeable is the grunt that the engine offers. There's copious amount of torque in the bottom end and the mid-range, which makes this SUV quite likeable to drive in the city and on the highway. What we are not big fans of is the steering. It is quite dead, and for the size of this SUV, we would have liked a little bit more heaviness, a little bit more weight on the steering itself. The ride quality is slightly on the bouncier side, but again, not to the extent of being uncomfortable. Driving the Alturas G4, you definitely get the feel of solidity that every Mahindra SUV boasts of. It goes up against established rivals such as the Toyota Fortuner, Ford Endeavour and the Isuzu MU-X. The Alturas G4 is impressive as an overall package. It has solid road presence, has a ton of features, well-appointed cabin and has a decent engine too. Will it be enough for Mahindra to enter into a new SUV segment and own it? Definitely.
A brand new flagship for M&M, and it's the pricing that's going to get all the attention, as it always does for a Mahindra. Now, speaking of flagships, a car that nearly plays the same role for Mercedes-Benz is the GLE. There's a new 4th generation of that car that I had a chance to drive just a few days ago in the US. That's a story we'll show you next week. Here's a glimpse of it. We go now towards the new Maruti Suzuki Ertiga, 2nd generation of that car. Very important volumes model for the car maker and very good prices as always. Great prices in fact, considering the competition set. All the variants, all those details and the full review.
It is probably one of the most popular family cars in India, especially if you have one big happy family. While the first gen Ertiga has several buyers in the personal segment, a huge chunk of sales also came in from the fleet markets as an alternate to the much more expensive Innova. In fact, the Ertiga in its first generation sold about 65,000 units a year, making it the second highest selling MPV in the country. And now there is an all-new avatar, a 2nd generation. Here it is, Maruti Suzuki's latest offering for India, the all-new Ertiga. So let's see how this new 7-seater MPV is priced. Prices for the new Ertiga start at 7,44,000 rupees for the petrol manual and 8,84,000 rupees for the diesel manual. The petrol automatic starts at 9,18,000 rupees. While the petrol and diesel manual have 4 variants each, the petrol automatic gets 2 variants. And if you're wondering, the new Ertiga undercuts the likes of the Mahindra Marazzo by an average of about 1.5 lakh rupees.
If I had a penny for every time somebody would ask me what 7-seater car they should buy because they want to have their whole family on a road trip, or whether they want to do an airport run once every 2 or 3 months, I'll have enough money to actually buy an Ertiga because, well, this car is actually, as we already mentioned, really well priced. That said, the whole 7-seater thing is a very Indian thing to have. It's a very Indian mentality to take your whole family out together on that drive, and it's cool. And the only reason you would buy a 7-seater car is, of course, you need that extra space. And space is the first thing that I'd like to talk about because the Ertiga does have a lot of it. Now, the front seats are adjusted to my driving position, and we'll get to the dashboard a little later, but let's talk about the center row first. It's a lot more comfortable. The seat itself is now wider, so you get a little more sort of under thigh support. You still have enough leg space. Even with my driving position, I still have maybe 4 or 5 inches left over. Of course, head space is great, and you do have that AC vent on the top, but the real improvement is actually in that 3rd row. So with the magic of a little bit of editing, I'm going to snap my fingers and I'm going to head back there. So I finally managed to slide myself into the 3rd row of the Ertiga, where of course you will find people sitting here in the back of one of these cars. And even though I did have to pole vault over that center seat there is still so much space. Now I haven't moved this center seat to where I was earlier, but I still have some wiggle room to play with in terms of leg space. Now, the last gen car definitely did not have this extra amount of leg space here. I still have maybe 1.5 inches or 2 inches here to play with. I have enough headroom too, and although I don't have my own AC vents, I do have a set of cup holders and even a little 12-volt charging point here. So well equipped, and of course more comfortable, because exactly like that center row of seats, these seats seem to have sort of extended their base a little bit, so they're more comfortable, and you don't have a high floor like maybe the Innova does. So you can actually put your legs down normally and sit really comfortably, and that is a big plus point.
And so we come to the interior design itself. The first thing that strikes you is just how upmarket the new Ertiga feels on the inside. A faux wood theme extends across the dashboard, and to be honest, even though it is plastic, at the end of the day, it does look quite nice. The new Ertiga gets a beige and darker brown two-tone combination across the dashboard and the seats. The central console houses the large touchscreen infotainment system, which has its own inbuilt navigation, but also supports smartphone integration like Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. The new Ertiga also gets a flat bottom steering wheel that is wrapped in leather, and behind that an all-new blue-themed instrument cluster with a color TFT display for the top-of-the-line ZXi Plus and ZDI Plus models.
Now, one of the biggest complaints about the older Ertiga was the fact that it just didn't have enough boot space. In fact, it was so small that you could barely fit a tiny little overnight bag into it. This one though, of course, new platform, so Maruti really has worked a ton of magic on making the boot space a lot better. So the boot now is twice as large as it was on the older generation. It's now 209 litres, and if you fold all the seats flat, it's 803 litres of boot space. But that's not why I'm opening the boot and showing you stuff. The cooler part of the Ertiga is the fact that you can actually configure the boot in certain ways, which makes storage a lot easy. So I'm going to go and grab a couple of bags, and of course this is a small overnighter that will fit really easily, no problems indeed. But if you really wanted to put a bigger sort of aircraft level big bag, it was always difficult. Now though, it's not, because you can of course put it horizontally and it fits really well, which of course it never did on the older Ertiga. But the new cool thing is that you can actually have these panels come off, and if you're wondering what to do with them after you've taken them off, well, worry not, because they actually do stow away right on the bottom here and take about half an inch or an inch of space on the bottom, and it's been made so that it actually fits in there. And then you can actually fit two of these bags vertically, which of course is a ton of space, especially considering the fact that this is well, not massive amounts of boot space to begin with. You can of course fold those seats a little bit more, and then it does shut down too. Voila!
So let's talk about that big change then. The way the Ertiga now looks on the outside will always be a big draw to the Indian customers, and Suzuki has absolutely nailed it with the design. The new Ertiga is longer, wider and taller as compared with last generation, but the wheelbase remains the same, giving that very balanced look to the MPV. A sharper chrome festooned grille, nice crisp projector headlamps and a general front end that exudes road presence is what the Ertiga is really all about. It is the same story when it comes to the profile too. The first thing that comes to mind is that window line and distinct design feature on the C-pillar. Move to the back and the large boomerang inspired tail lamps look quite cool, but remember, it is only a selective section of the tail lamps that actually light up and not the whole tail lamp. In fact, if given an option, the only thing I would change are those tiny 15-inch alloy wheels. A set of nicer 16 or even 17-inch wheels, maybe from the Brezza, would have done real wonders.
Now, if you are probably the kind of person who's going to buy an Ertiga, we know that drive dynamics and performance outright is not on the top of your priority list. We have talked about your priorities. It's comfort, it's the kind of sort of tech you get, and of course how the car looks as a family car. That said, this is a new platform. So it's a new car, it's of course got a new petrol engine too, and that's the one I'm driving today. It's the K15, and that's the same engine you get also on the Ciaz. Now, it's the first time that the Ertiga gets the SHVS, or the Suzuki Hybrid Vehicle System setup, which essentially is a start-stop setup with a mild hybrid, and that does improve fuel economy. But the engine in particular, 1.5 litre as compared to the older one, which is 1.4 litres, and now this gets more power. So you make 103 bhp of peak power, and you get 138 Newton meters of peak torque. Now this comes with either a 5-speed manual or the 4-speed automatic, which we will show you in a little bit. But if you don't want the petrol engine, if you still want the good old diesel, there's of course that to have too.
The diesel engine remains the same as the last generation, that tried and tested 1.3 litre DDIS 200 motor. The engine makes 89 horsepower and 200 Newton meters of torque and offers that completely bonkers fuel economy figure of 25.47 kilometers per litre.
While the diesel will be a popular engine, sadly it doesn't get an automatic gearbox. For that you still have to go back to the petrol engine, and what you get is a 4-speed automatic, a conventional torque converter, and not an AMT like you get on the Swift or the Ignis or the Desire, for example. Now this is a smooth gearbox. Again, traditional torque converters are the best sort of gearboxes for not a lot of money. It's not DSG level money, but still a great performing gearbox. It drives really well. Generally it sort of gets along with what it's supposed to do, although it is still just a 4-speed. That said, fuel economy numbers are very impressive, and in general it does sort of feel adequate enough for the kind of power this makes. But sadly, what you don't get in the automatic version is all the features you get on the ZXi Plus variant. So for example, no big touchscreen, so no Apple CarPlay, no Android Auto. That means no reversing camera and no parking sensors either.
Fuel economy for the petrol engine is actually quite good too. 19.34 kilometers per litre for the petrol manual and 18.69 kilometers per litre for the petrol automatic. And that is about an increase of 10% over the last generation. The new Ertiga even seems to ride better. Yes, it is no tight handler, but for what it is meant to do, take a number of people comfortably from one place to another, it does that really well. Ride quality is noticeably better than before, and while there is some body roll due to the high center of gravity, it never really feels unsafe.
Now we know some of you viewers have had a concern over the safety of some of these cars in the past, which is why I'm going to take the time out and explain that the Ertiga does have a whole bunch of safety features in it. Of course, it does have that new platform which has more tensile steel, so it's an inherently safer platform to begin with. It does meet frontal offset crash regulations, which will come in next year. It also does meet side crash regulations according to Maruti Suzuki, and it also gets 2 airbags and ABS as standard on all variants across all engine lines and models and variants. Now, you also get ESC as standard on the automatic version, and that is a great step from Maruti to make safer cars for India.
So there you have it. A capable family car now gets even more capable with the launch of the new Ertiga. It is priced well, comes packed to the gills with features, and is more spacious. It handles and performs better. And honestly, apart from the fact that it could have had a better set of wheels, LED daytime running lights and LED headlamps, and that automatic desperately needs a fully loaded Z Plus model, Maruti Suzuki yet again have made a great package. With bookings open at Maruti Suzuki Arena dealerships across the country, and with waiting periods already starting to creep up, if you have been waiting for our review to decide whether or not you should buy one, our answer is a definitive and thumping yes. And if you're worried about your next Uber or Ola being the exact same car as your brand new Ertiga, Maruti Suzuki has clearly mentioned that this new generation model will be only sold for the private market, for now at least.
That's the new Maruti Suzuki Ertiga. Please react to that. React to the new Mahindra Alturas G4. And join us next week because, well, we've got lots of exciting stories lined up for you. I already showed you a glimpse of the Mercedes-Benz GLE in its new generation. There's also the Volvo S60 in its new generation that's waiting in the wings. So, plenty to look forward to over the next few days here on CNB. Thanks for watching. Please wear your seatbelts. Bye-bye.